Give into your anger. Set your feelings.
So yeah, weekend box office domestic. We're starting off on a bit of a negative note, but
Thank God.
we've got the top three. Yeah, we've got the top three domestic box office numbers here. Paw Patrol 2 has come in at 23 million, Saw X at 18 million, and The Creator at 14 million, which it's not very good. I did kind of feel like The Creator was going to be a bit of a flop, but I really enjoyed the movie. I was hoping that it would get good word of mouth. I was telling people, yeah, go see it, please go see it. Because the thing is, Greg, I see the same comments popping up on every single video that we do whenever we cover Marvel or Star Wars or something that's more of a franchise-based thing. You always get the Hollywood's crap now, nothing's original. It's just the same old sequels and reboots over and over. And then we get given this original story, original sci-fi. No one goes to see it. So you get what you deserve, guys. You get what you deserve. You've got to go support this stuff when it comes out. So yeah, 14 million. Why do you think it didn't do that well?
I mean, I saw the trailers on my own time, and I liked the trailers. Like, it looked visually appealing, but it is one of those cases where I can even see why it might not have done well. From like, a lot of people chalk it up to, oh, it's not a known IP or anything like that. But at the same time, some people have told me that, oh, there's visual elements that remind me of things like Blade Runner 2049 or the original Blade Runner, for that matter. And you would know better than I would in that regard. But even a movie like Blade Runner 2049 ultimately didn't do all that well. And sure, maybe because it's not an original IP, but I feel like they really, I mean, maybe because it's an original, it's not like based off of some, pre-established IP. At the same time, I feel like they really pushed the marketing on this one. They were gung ho about it, but perhaps there was something emotionally tangible that was not able to truly sell us on the experience overall. And when you think about what makes something truly original, there was a lot of things that I felt people were saying was, oh, it reminds them of this, it reminds them of this, it reminds them of that. So maybe even perhaps the thing that's being talked about all the time is this is a really expensive, like $80 million film, and it's an original film. At the same time, perhaps what makes it truly original was not the thing that was being sold to audiences. At the end of the day, I get their names confused. Which Gareth is it? Is it Edwards or Evans? I forget which one it is. One of them.
Those ones.
The one who did not do the raid. That Gareth guy, he's not as well known as a director. Like, if you put Nolan's name on this, sure, it probably would have done better. But we're not in 1999 anymore, or whenever The Matrix came out, where you can have a totally original looking sci-fi film where you don't need a huge director's name at the same time. That had Keanu Reeves and John David Washington is not as big of a box office, star or box office pull. So I can see how there's a lot of factors ultimately working against it. It's not a pre-existing IP. The trailers themselves, while really good and probably speak to film enthusiasts or cinephiles, ultimately are not reaching audiences that are not within that specific category. And it's a bummer because everyone I know that's seen it actually really enjoys it, even though that it's not, void of its criticisms. Everyone I know that's seen it has really enjoyed it, you included as well. But why do you think it flopped?
I think sci-fi in general really has an uphill struggle at the box office. It's very rare that you see a completely original IP sci-fi film do really, really well. And a lot of times, well, more often than not, those movies tend to flop. Because I was thinking today, like Terminator did really well. Avatar, obviously, massive thing. But then you've got these sort of scattered films in between that, like your Contacts. Obviously, The Matrix did really well. But like Arrival, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always kind of underperform. And yeah, it's weird seeing it because they'll get good reviews, they'll get good word of mouth, but for some reason, general audiences just don't ever go out and see them. And these films tend to pick up great followings once they hit home release. So I'm thinking that's what will happen with this. It was shot on a very modest budget. It was 80 million. I think it looks absolutely. I mean, this is obviously. I'm parroting a lot of things that have been said over and over and over about this movie, but I think it looks incredible for its budget. It blows so many other films out the water, especially ones you've seen released this year. And it's kind of insane to see how good it looks when you compare it to stuff that has like $300 million budgets. And yeah, I'm guessing it just doesn't seem like it connected with audiences, whether it's not, it didn't really have, John David Washington, he's becoming more of a known name, but he's not that household name, that must see actor that you want to. Even Tenet didn't have a massive following behind it. And unfortunately, yeah, it's a casualty, I think, of just the way that Hollywood's trained people to be. Ever since the pandemic, we've had it in our minds that if we're not desperate to go and see a movie, it's going to hit streaming very soon, and we can just wait for it to go on home release. And studios have kind of shot themselves in the foot by doing this. And it's just the pandemic just affected behavior and how audiences view stuff. And, with sci-fi in general not doing those massive numbers, it just didn't seem like a lot of people were feeling like they really got sold on the film, which is a shame because, again, it's a really good movie. And I think once it hits at home releases, there's going to be a lot of people that come around on it and go, oh, I'd love to see a sequel to that. It's like, well, it made no money, mate. So, sod yous, we're going back to doing Marvel and Star Wars movies and nothing else for the next 25 years.
All the original films that succeed are, because this is like the big conversation around it is that it's a relatively big, like it's a modest budget considering the kind of blockbusters that are out there now, but it's bigger than a low budget film. It's still above mid budget range, right? And when you think about the original films that still actually do well, it's the horror category, man. It's all like that A24 horror, or it doesn't even have to be A24, but generally it is horror that still is the thriving genre, and you get a lot of originality in there, and that seems to be the main genre that actually can still thrive with truly original content.